Hello, everyone. So, a very surprising, very much sooner than expected release that we have here today to talk about from Swedish electronic alternative artist ionnalee, formerly known as iamamiwhoami. She has more recently started going under her own name, ionnalee, although she spells it I-O-N-N-A to pronounce it the way it's supposed to be pronounced in Swedish, so that people don't say Johnnalee. And this is following right off the heels from Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten, which was released only a year ago this month. We have a new album called Remember the Future, which will be released on May 31st. And this is technically her second solo studio album, but it would also be considered, if you consider all of her previous records, would be like her fifth official release. And this song is called Open Sea. So let me just say right off the gate, I was not expecting any new ionnalee music anytime soon. I had seen how it had taken her quite a while to make Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten. She's right off the heels of a, world tour that she went on that was funded through Kickstarter last year, which was incredible, that I got to be a part of by going to one of her shows in Brooklyn. It was incredible. And that's only just winding down, and she's already out with new music. And I'm like, how did she have time to actually write and produce any of this? She says that a lot of this music was inspired by the fire she received from the audiences all around the world on this tour. And if you looked at the pledge goals for the original Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten Kickstarter drive, there was one of the highest goals that if they reached a certain amount of money, that there would be another audiovisual album that would be released in the summer of 2019. So, as you can see, we apparently have reached that goal, and that is what's happening. So I had read that, and I completely forgot. So she was planning on hopefully releasing something sooner rather than later. And also, keep in mind, this is actually a lot of work that has been in the works for a long time. ionnalee is one of those artists who constantly is working on different things, and sometimes she shelves a song for 6 years and it doesn't see the light of day until 2 albums down the road. Like that. Apparently Open Sea was a song that she had originally been tinkering with before she even created the Blue album. And this song in some ways was actually the gateway towards the Blue record and the theme of that. Obviously, I think most people, when they saw the single title, were thinking the cover single art, oh, we're going back to the Blue era. Okay, I wasn't necessarily expecting that. And I have to be honest, for an artist who is so much about reinvention and innovation, I was a little shocked to see a single cover and a song title that just so closely mimicked the Blue era in terms of visuals and aesthetics that I was a little scratching my head. I was like, is this a Blue B-side? Like, are we just doing Blue 2.0? Like, or is this going to be its whole other package? And I kind of would prefer it to be, because as much as I love Blue, it's like, let's make things each like unique and different thematically in terms of visuals and stuff. But that actually is not necessarily the case. There may be themes of water built into this record, but actually the idea of a sea is more alluding to outer space and more of like the idea of like a cosmic voyage. It's a lot broader than just, the literal translation of sailing on a ship in the sea. My ship has sailed, she sings in the opening lyrics. It was loaded with jewels and gems. Wave my vices, farewell for the best. So we're taking off, but in this ship, we're actually going up rather than horizontal, so to speak, so much. Although, what is up? What is horizontal, right? With Yona, we're completely in another dimension here. So forget, space and time that we know as we know it down here, right? So the visual that we have now for this, which again, I am boggled that she's had the time to actually film this. It's actually one of the visuals that is almost entirely not in a natural environment. Usually she's always at least somewhat out in nature. This visual is very much a set with a lot of CGI. She utilizes the sort of figural bodies and the sort of pattern that I remember was in the backdrop for the Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten tour, was sort of like the backing visual for that. So you could tell that this was already being worked on and thought of while that tour was going on. So this shows her in a spaceship. It shows her carrying what looks to be like a small little plant. If I was really, on my A game, I would remember what the name of that type of plant is, but, I'm just not there right now. It's not a hosta, but it looks like one. Anyway, Yona is trying to really take us to another level here. And so I've heard people consider this to be more like the space age era, so to speak. And I am definitely excited to see where the sonics and the visuals will take us. Now let's talk about the actual track itself. Yona collaborated with her frequent partner, Claes Bjorklund, Barbell. She's worked with him on all of her stuff. And this song is intriguing in that it is, I think, a little bit more harkening back to a style that we haven't seen so much on a recent record, but more so on the Blue album and definitely more so on her first two albums, particularly Kin. I'm seeing some comparisons there in terms of the sonic structure of this song being anthemic, but at the same time wrapped in sort of this distorted kind of hard to get into sort of initially sphere of sonics. Because I'll be honest with you, the first time I listened to it, I was scratching my head. I was like, you know, maybe I'm used to hearing too much recognizable kind of melody lines in her songs as of late. And now she's getting a bit more into that abstract kind of dissonance again. There's definitely something slightly off about what perceives to be the melody line of the chorus that just never fully gets on its feet. But it's done, you know, I think actually in a way that over time sort of becomes very well thought out and very well constructed. But it just, you know, there's these beautiful backing vocals that she produces, but they're sort of drowned out by, you know, the electronic production and the way the chorus is trying to be structured. Everything's just a little bit offbeat too, so it just feels a little bit off. And that's not necessarily a new thing for her music. I mean, again, this isn't traditional pop music. I have to keep reminding myself of that. I feel like when I sat down to listen to this, even though I've heard all her music, I was sort of like, oh yeah, she's a lot more experimental. Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten in some ways was experimental, but in some ways it was a little bit more accessible in terms of having, you know, catchy pop hooks and being much more like, this is a song with a more distinct structure and the rhythms were all syncopated up and everything. So this song is definitely a little bit more chaotic, and you know what? I'm gonna learn to love it. Right now, it's not necessarily a song that like I think of, oh, I'm gonna listen to over and over again, but I know that it's gonna grow on me. A lot of her earlier songs did that for me, like songs like Why or songs like T or Good Worker, for example. Initially, I was just scratching my head, but then it was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I know that's how this song's going to turn out for me. There are some lyrics that I am extremely fascinated by. The first line, who builds a world upon a man? I love that line. The careless knot I knew wouldn't pulled you out to open sea. Silence drained us on all that was golden. You got the worst of me. Now watch as I slip away, with my hands untied as the sky bleed red. The lyrics are very, very cumbersome to read. And that's, again, not necessarily something you should be surprised about. You really have to like sit and digest them for a second. And I'm getting the idea of, you know, reinventing yourself, deciding that you are going to, I mean, that line, you got the worst of me, is just staring out at the page. Like, I can't stop looking at it. I'm like, that's the thesis statement. It's basically like, I'm going to not restart, but I am going to, you know, set sail on this new journey. And like, you need to be with me on this. Like, you need to see where I'm going to take you, because I have not necessarily showed you the best sides of me so far. So like, now let's get like the real stuff. Like, let's go and see what the best parts of me are. Like, that's what I'm getting from the lyrics here. Again, it's pulling from a lot of different avenues here, trying to pull something together. And again, like, a part of me doesn't even really need to decipher these lyrics that directly, because for me, Yona is so much more about sonics in some ways than she is about lyrics, just because sometimes it's hard to understand what she's saying. But overall, I would definitely say this song is an interesting, definitely intriguing intro into a new era for us. I do think it's going to be very different in terms of what we have heard before, and that's always something that is, you know, the synth pop backing could be like very similar in some ways to like a song on Blue. So that's where I do see that parallel. It's like, oh, this doesn't sound too far off from things she's done before. But again, in terms of the actual melody construction, it's just always going to be something different. And I will say that after what I believe is the second chorus, when it breaks into a much more electropop kind of dance style breakdown, that is where the song really finds its groove for me. That's where I really start to feel the actual structure of it. And I think that's one of the highlight parts. So I will say that's my favorite. So let me know in the chorus. Let me know in the chorus. Let me know in the comments what you think about Jonna's new song and how shocked you are to see new music so soon off of a big project that took so long. She's probably been working on new material for a long time over the years, and like she said, this song's been, in various forms all throughout, the last several years. So she's got a lot of material that she's honestly ready to just polish up and release. So I'm really excited, and I'm really excited to look forward to a new Ionna record this year. It was not something I was predicting for 2019. Often that is the case. So I will link in the description my Everyone Afraid to Be Forgotten review. If anyone is new to this channel, want to hear my thoughts on that, I raved about that review, as well as I've also reviewed all of her other projects, so you can check those out as well. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Peace, love, and light. Bye.